Hey guys, what's up? So just a quick recap of the update in the original server. First is the new hero, Barats. His skills are shown in the patch notes, which means he is going to be the next new hero, but there was no information about his release date. Next is Ling. His damage remains untouched, but the developers think it's time to give Ling's enemies a fighting chance. When he is above a wall, he will now be slowed for 2 seconds if he is hit with a crowd control skill. They added a delay on his second skill and they've lowered the movement speed when using his ultimate. Next is Claude. They over-nerfed him from the last update, so now they are giving back some power to his first skill. They added more attack speed and movement speed from each stack that he gets from his skill 1. Next is Aldous. The developers think he is weak in the early game, so they'll increase the base damage of his first skill. They hope it will make Aldous farm faster, but in exchange, he will only get 7 damage instead of 8 from each stack. Next is Helcurt. They think his passive silence is too easy to activate, so now they'll make it a bit harder. His passive skill silence will now only be triggered if it's a crowd control skill. And they also increase his base attack speed. Next is Zhong. His passive skill is nerfed, giving him slower heal and lower spell vamp. They've increased his movement speed boost, but it now disappears much faster than before. And they also reduce his damage while in dragon form. Next is Sun-shin. Lower damage on his enhanced basic attack in the early game, and his 30% damage reduction on his first skill is removed. This update only affected his durability. His damage remains the same once it reaches mid to late game. Next is Luo Yi. They lowered the damage of her first and second skill. They also reduce the damage and pull effect when she creates a yin-yang reaction.
Everyone has the right to embrace.
Next is Uranus. Lower shield from his second skill and decrease HP and shield regeneration from his ultimate in the early levels. So he became weaker in the early levels but remains the same when it reaches late game. Next is Popol and Kupa. The developers wanted to remove his ability to support, so they'll adjust his skills and stats. Lower HP for Kupa, damage adjustment on his first skill, lower movement speed on his third skill, and more attack speed on his ultimate. In short, weaker Kupa but stronger Popol. Next is Atlas. They've removed the stun effect when using his ultimate while in ejected state. Instead of stun, the enemies will be slowed by 40%. Previously, you needed Purify because of the stun, but now you can dash or flicker away from his ultimate. It's a big nerf for this guy. Next is Ruby. Her second skill now has a larger area of effect. Her first skill now has a shorter cooldown, but they've lowered its damage in the early levels. Her defense stats from her passive skill is now lower in the early levels, but it goes higher than before when at late game. Her lifesteal to spell vamp conversion is now lower from 125 down to 115%. And lastly, her mana regen is increased. So her skills are easier to spam, but they've decreased her lifesteal and durability in the early stage. Next is Esmeralda. They've increased the shield that she gets from her first skill, but they fixed the bug where her shield can surpass 50% of her max HP. So no more full white HP bars this time. Next is Karina. They've increased her passive skill damage and lowered her ultimate cooldown. Next is Natalia. They've increased the damage of her enhanced basic attack, but they lowered her critical damage. This made her stronger in the early game but weaker at late game. Next is Vale. Lower mana cost and higher base damage for his first skill. Lower cooldown when damage range is picked for his first skill. Higher damage for his stop on hit skill. His knock airborne skill now has a shorter knock-up duration from 1.2 down to 1.1 seconds. Next is Kaja. He lacks pushing and durability in the early game, so now they'll increase his base HP and damage for his first skill. Next is Kimmy. They've adjusted her basic attack, making it weaker in the early levels but stronger when at late game. Next is Martis. The developers think he is weak in the early game, so now they've shortened the cooldown of his first skill by 1 to 2 seconds. Shorter cooldown means it's easier to activate his passive skill. Next is Terizla. It's easy to escape his ultimate, so now they'll make adjustments to make it better. Lower cooldown and stronger slow effect for his ultimate skill. Next is Alpha.
Time to upgrade the system.
The developers think Alpha's late game is too weak, so now they'll add some more to his ultimate. Increase physical attack bonus from 270 to now 360%. Next is Minsitthar. They think he is hard to use when in solo lane because of the long cooldown of his skills. Now they'll adjust his second skill by increasing its early game damage, lowering its cooldown, and lesser mana requirement. Next is Gatotkaca. His damage is too high, so they'll decrease his enhanced basic attack in the late game. They also reduce the slow effect from his first skill. Next is Glowing Wand. Weaker burn damage when hitting the same target. Next is Queen's Wings. Its damage reduction is lowered from 50 down to 40%, and its cooldown is now longer by 10 seconds. But they've increased its physical lifesteal from 30 to now 40%. They also added a new feature where you can see an icon if its passive is ready. Mythic rank now has protection points, and you can use protection cards as well. You can now see how many games you've played with a friend by looking at their profile. You can now receive game invitation if you're alone in a lobby. You can no longer gain credit score in versus AI mode when it's higher than 70. Killing enemies with high net worth will now grant more bonus gold.
Legendary!
You will not lose a star if there is an AFK teammate. This can only be triggered once a week. You need to use a newly bought hero 2 times in Classic or Brawl before you can use them in ranked games. Next are the Brawl mode adjustments. They've added stats to certain heroes to make them weaker or stronger in Brawl mode. Last one is the upcoming event Reforge Your Legend, where you can vote on which heroes will be revamped. So who do you think will come up number 1 on this voting event? Who will you vote? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. That's all for this video. Stay safe and thank you for watching.